Back on the Newsfeed PM, thanks for staying on. Now, as South Africa weighs easing BEE rules to allow for Elon Musk's Starlink to operate, some critics argue the debate must go beyond internet speeds to deeper issues of sovereignty, trust, and transformation. On paper, Starlink seems like the perfect fix for South Africa's digital divide in a country where just 10 to 15% of rural homes have stable internet. High-speed satellite broadband feels almost miraculous. Here to unpack this further, I'm joined by Jan Vermeulen, editor at MyBroadband. Jan, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. The President speaking in Parliament saying the promise of a low-orbit satellite service and internet connectivity is not new. He says there are other private companies, even the Chinese and the Russian companies, including local companies, are interested into tapping into this space. Are they on par with what Starlink has to offer?
Not even close. So Starlink has an incredible early mover advantage. And an easy way to understand that is SpaceX, which owns and operates Starlink, are the ones who invented the Falcon 9 reusable rocket. So they're the ones who own the launch capability to do this at low cost. And so it makes sense that they would have the advantage. They're the ones who got satellites, these low Earth orbit satellites in space fastest. They've been operating for many years already. And right now they've got thousands of satellites in the sky, whereas the next nearest competitor has maybe a dozen.
Yeah. President believing that at least a lot of community and public engagement needs to be taken on board in how this particular contract is going to be crafted, if at all it's going to include Starlink. But we're also hearing from the Department, for example, of Public Works that they are looking at increasing contracts for locals. How do you merge these two things that I suppose government is engaged in and the need to, I suppose, use this technology at its advanced stage that is provided by Starlink?
Sure. And I think we're looking at two completely different use cases here. So while Starlink is a good backup option, in communities, that might have cellular coverage, but the tower goes down during load shedding, or batteries get stolen, or cables get stolen, and then you've got Starlink as a backup. Starlink's good for that, but Starlink is really good in providing connectivity to places where no one else will go, where it's just too cost prohibitive for a mobile operator to go, let alone a fiber provider. And then on top of that, Starlink can provide 4G, 5G-like speeds to those communities. Whatever systems and interventions government is proposing from its side, they are entirely separate from the kind of service that Starlink can provide.
There are concerns, of course, a single billionaire without consultation with the public, without proper oversight, without a public mandate may undermine the strategic calculations of a sovereign nation fighting for its territorial integrity, but also having its own transformative imperatives.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that. So one thing that gets kind of oversimplified is that the communications minister has proposed providing a workaround or a backdoor or easing the BEE requirements for telecommunications providers. Now, that's not, so easing the requirements is perhaps not entirely inaccurate, but it's incomplete. He's talking about aligning South Africa's telecommunications sector's BEE requirements with that of other industries, with what the DTI has laid down in the ICT sector code, amongst other things. And so right now, as things stand right now, a telecommunications network provider has to account for BEE using two different formulas, actually three different formulas, depending on how you want to slice this cake. So that's the one aspect of it. Then the other aspect of it is, Elon's famous or infamous capriciousness. I think it's important to remember that SpaceX is not Elon Musk. He's a major shareholder. He's got a controlling vote on the board, but SpaceX is made up of incredibly talented individuals, each doing their own work, and which have continued to do their own good work while Elon was distracted with the Doge and who knows what else. And so SpaceX is more than Elon Musk. And the other thing I would like to throw out there is that people who are worried about Musk having control over one telecommunication system that might serve South Africa, should perhaps look to their own use of Twitter then, because South Africans do love a good tweet, and our South African government treats Twitter as an official communications channel. And that is like run by Elon Musk with an iron fist.
Yeah. I mean, operating alone, this is an individual who was able to alter the realm of diplomacy. You know, he colors outside the line, and others are saying even bordering on meddling in international law. I mean, what would be the implications for that, for the sovereignty of a nation? He was able to override a nation pretty much in his position where he is.
Well, there I'm outside of my area of expertise. I don't even know if that statement's accurate. It seems that Elon Musk had undue influence, but did he really? Because he doesn't like the tariffs that Trump has imposed. He's called the guy who's supposedly thought up these tariffs, he's called him an idiot. And so, how much influence does he have? And so there's that one aspect of it. I just like to throw that out there. While we're discussing this, let's also be critical about some of the statements being made. But let's say, that, for example, a famous thing that gets held up is Elon Musk threatened to cut off Starlink access to Ukraine. But firstly, it didn't happen. So there were pressures from other sources that prevented that from happening. And so that shows you that he alone does not make this decision. And so, yeah, if there's concerns over sovereignty of your telecommunications infrastructure, I think it's also important to contextualize. We are a consumer of telecommunications technology, not a producer. We buy from Huawei in China. We buy from Cisco in the United States for the root core stuff that goes into our networks. And those companies have been famous for using, or the governments of those countries have been famous for using the dominance of those two companies, a Huawei and a Cisco, to their advantage. And we know, for example, Edward Snowden showed us that the NSA would intercept Cisco routers and implant spying devices in them to spy on networks all over the world. Right. And there's allegations that Huawei is being used to spy on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. And so the position that Starlink is in is no different than Huawei or Cisco.
Jan, much appreciated. Let's leave it there for this afternoon. Jan Vermeulen, editor at MyBroadband, there on the inclusion of Starlink in the infrastructure spend of the country.